So the last episode made me furious at this show, considering it character assassinated all 3 of our main characters in the span of 10 minutes. Kind of impressive, but also had some pretty damning world building implications that are catastrophic. Oh, and the fact that Ahsoka is now in the world between worlds for some reason will probably never be explained, and good god that CGI looks awful. Anyway, let's jump into Ahsoka, episode 5, Shadow Warrior. God, that's such an edgy title. Dave Filoni, why'd you write that? We see long establishing shots of the forest, moving closer to the henge, and we see the remnants of the broken map. Hera comes out of her ship with a gun, searching for Ahsoka and Sabine. Jacen comes out of the ship and wants to look around. Hera tells him to be careful since they don't know this planet. She walks closer to the edge of the cliff and hears something move. She then signals Jacen to stay back. I find this incredibly amusing considering that, need I remind you, Hera was completely okay with bringing a child into a battlefield. So apparently Hera went through a character arc between episodes and learned the valuable lesson that is, oh, maybe I should take care of my child and protect him and not bring him into a war zone. That might be a good thing to do. I don't know, probably not. Anyway, we get the most heartbreaking piece of dialogue in the show as we see Hu Yang holding Sabine's helmet.
I told them to stay together. But they never listened.
I cannot handle this, bro. Sad Hu Yang is something I never thought I would see, but now seeing it, I want to crawl in a corner and sob. Someone give him a hug. I can't take it. Also, to comment on the fact that they never listen, I think it's funny how Sabine is responsible for almost every roadblock in their plan thus far, and probably will never be told off for that. The first episode shows Sabine stealing the ball from Ahsoka and going to her house after not only being told not to take it, but also that if this map ends up in the wrong hands, it could start another galactic war. But no, she needs to go somewhere by herself so she can think because she's smart, but also quirky. And then in the second episode, Ahsoka doesn't seem that bothered by it. I mean, she's barely frustrated if you squint hard enough. Oh, and then in episode 4, she gave the enemy the map, aka letting the map fall into wrong hands, which could very possibly start another war. The thing Ahsoka specifically warned her about. But it's fine because she's quirky. Anyway, then cut to Ahsoka in the world between worlds, talking to Anakin, and Anakin's kind of based.
You look the same.
You look old.
Bro, got him. They start talking about how Ahsoka just lost a fight, referring to her duel with Baylan Skoll in the last episode, and Anakin says that she lost. This dialogue is interesting because it implies that Ahsoka is dead, which is completely reasonable to assume considering that she fell off a cliff from pretty far up. And from looking at the wide shot of the henge, it looks like she probably fell onto some pretty harsh rocks, so she's probably dead. There's a lot of problems with this concept of Ahsoka dying and coming back to life, and it ties back into Rebels when Ezra plucked her out of nowhere in time. But I want to talk about that at the end of the video so we get the full context of why this is a problem. So stick around if you're curious about that. Anyway, Anakin starts talking in the most vague way possible because that's all Dave Filoni knows how to write. And the performance is pretty rough considering Hayden is trying to portray Clone Wars version of the character by Matt Lanter, but also going along with every other character in the show, Anakin is just a plank of wood. It doesn't sound like either of these characters. Whoever this Anakin is, he is just a husk of what we know and love. And I would like to clarify this is not a problem with Hayden. It's simply another example of Dave Filoni's inability to direct actors. Anyway, then Ahsoka and Anakin start fighting, but before that, this is said.
I won't fight you.
I've heard that before.
Okay, so this confirms that this version of Anakin has to be a Force ghost, since I assume this line is referring to this moment in Return of the Jedi when Luke denies fighting Vader. But of course, I'm just assuming since, again, this dialogue is incredibly vague. Cut to the henge and Jacen is sitting near the edge and Hera is trying to scan for something on this PlayStation 5 with giant antennas. I actually have no idea what this is. Then the Mando guy comes up and says this.
Senator Organa says she can only give us cover for so long.
Okay, I have a problem. I assume by Senator Organa, he means Leia. And if so, I'm surprised that Leia is not only completely okay with what Hera has done, but is completely fine with covering up the fact that Hera has not only gone against the word of the committee, but also led New Republic pilots to their death. Oh, and also brought a child into a war zone, which, if you don't know, is a war crime. So, Leia, are you sure you want to be covering up for Hera? Because you're colluding with a war criminal, Leia. Are you sure you want to do this? Then Jacen says says there's something in the water, and Hera says that Chopper would be able to scan it if there was something. Then she says this.
General, we need to figure out what we're gonna tell Command.
I'll cover it. What good is a high rank if you can't use it every now and then?
Hera, don't make me sit you down. This is not how being a general works. You can't cover anything you want because you're a general. I'm being as calm as possible right now and not yelling. Also, what is with Hera bringing up the fact that she's a general at every opportunity? In fact, that's her only defining trait at this point in the show, really. Then Jason starts telling her to listen to the waves. And Jason says this.
Listen to the waves.
What are we listening for?
Don't you hear it?
The waves crashing?
No. The lightsabers.
Okay, hold on. Now we're establishing that the world between worlds can bleed over into reality whenever it wants. That or Jason is just stupid and making things up in his head. Also, I assume Jason can hear it purely because he's force sensitive from being a son of Kanan. So then Hera starts listening and Okay, so not only can Force users hear the world between worlds, but also normal people. Oh wait, I forgot. Everyone's Force sensitive now! Then Hera decides to go and survey the water, so she sends the remaining pilots that she has out to find Ahsoka. And she just leaves Jason at the henge with Chopper, which, okay. What happened to being worried about Jason while you're on a planet that you're not familiar with? I guess Hera forgot how to take care of a child again. Then the Mano guy gets an exposition dump from Hu Yang.
What am I missing? What just happened?
Jason has abilities. His father, Kanan Jarrus, was a Jedi.
This is probably one of the most abrupt exposition dumps I've seen. I guess Dave remembered that he forgot to explain to new viewers that Jason is the son of Kanan. Dave could have written this into earlier parts of the show, but for whatever reason, he didn't? Okay. Anyway, cut to Ahsoka fighting Anakin in the most clunky way. This choreography is just so clunky. What happened to the fluidity of saber duels? I'd rather take the more overperformed fighting in the prequels than whatever this is. Man, I think that I'd even take the fighting in the sequel trilogy over this. Actually, I take that back. The throne sequence is still horrid. Then Anakin cuts the beam, because you can just do that, I guess. Don't know why he didn't do that before. And Ahsoka falls into smoke. Then we see a younger Ahsoka, and we are in the Clone Wars.
This is the Clone Wars.
Yeah, no kidding.
Thank you, Anakin, for stopping in the middle of a fight to make a snarky comment. I see you're a big fan of the MCU. Oh, and also look at this cosplay that Anakin's wearing. Bro, it just looks terrible. You look like you're in Roblox. I'd like to remind you that not only was somebody paid to make this, but Dave Filoni said yes to this design. And then on top of that, the studio said yes. And that's incredible. Also, there's this oppressive fog throughout the entire sequence, and it's so thick and it looks terrible. This entire thing is obviously being shot in the volume, and it just looks so fake. And the lightsabers don't look that great either. Look at this. What is she doing? They've obviously added zero CGI to the lightsabers in this scene. And if they did, I mean, do better, I guess. I don't know what to tell you. Then they talk more, and I like how this clone's head is wrapped because they 100% couldn't get to Mayor Morrison on set because he was probably busy with Aquaman 2. Also, while they're talking, I can't help to think that this child actress, Ariana Greenblatt, is doing a better job and being more charismatic than Rosario Dawson. And that's sad because Rosario Dawson is a really good actress.
You made it pretty clear you didn't want to move forward with whatever this was.
You know what it was, what it could have been.
If I stopped.
I'm not looking to go around in circles, Matt. I know you're not going to stop.
Not until this city is safe from people like Fisk.
Which is never. You told me you were the man this city needs. I think that was only half true. I think you're also the man this city created. For better or worse.
Thank you.
I'll always be there when you really need me. To patch you up. You know, the only thing I remember from Sunday school is the martyrs, the saints, the saviors. They all end up the same way. Bloody and alone.
I never said I was any of those.
You didn't have to.
But she's being absolutely wasted here because Dave doesn't know how to direct. They go on to talk about whether or not Ahsoka wants a Padawan, which is so strange considering this is one of her first missions as a Padawan of Anakin. And it feels even more weird considering that Ahsoka has never talked about having a Padawan ever in any of the Clone Wars or even Rebels. This conversation is purely trying to just integrate Ahsoka's manufactured worries about training Sabine as a Padawan because that's the direction Dave Filoni is forcing this character to go down, whether or not it's consistent. Then we get some loud key jangling with this shot. Guys, look, it's Anakin Skywalker. And if you don't know, he becomes Darth Vader. Are you clapping yet? Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, there's more shallow visuals coming soon. Cut to Jason and Chopper just sitting here doing nothing. I don't know why this scene is here. They're just sitting here and saying nothing. Just sitting. Why is this shot here? Cut to Hera talking to Huyang, and Huyang says that he's surprised that the New Republic approved her mission. She then says lol nah, and that they didn't and she came anyway. Yeah, Hera, what a general you are, disobeying orders, leading pilots to their death, and committing war crimes by building children into war. Good job, Hera, you're a great person, by the way. They talk about how Ahsoka is out there, and they bring up her master for some reason. By the way, they're bringing him up only because he's the topic of this episode of the show, and they need to reference him as much as they can to just activate the member berries in your brain and make you clap. It doesn't work on me because I actually have a brain. Hera asks what he was like, and the one word Huyang uses to describe him as is intense, which is not the word I would use. Maybe for this version of the character, but definitely not the one from the show or even the movies. The best word I would use to describe him is determined, and that's just a more accurate description of Anakin from both the show and the movies, but whatever, Dave Filoni. You can write the character however you want. Consistency doesn't matter. Cut back to Ahsoka, and she has time traveled into the Siege of Mandalore, and she starts breakdancing while fighting. She is busting some moves, bro. Also, I would like to point out that this is the same actress from earlier, which is a problem considering that she looks the exact same age as earlier, which is 3 years ago, canonically. At the beginning of the Clone Wars, Ahsoka becomes Anakin's Padawan at the age of 14. And I think this actress can pull off a 14 to 15-year-old Ahsoka. But the Siege of Mandalore is at the very end of the Clone Wars, when she was 17 years old. And I'm sorry, this is not 17-year-old Ahsoka. They didn't even try to make her look older. They made her Leku bigger, but that's not enough. They just threw her in a Walmart cosplay and called it good. Put some makeup shading to make her look older at least. Hey, at least they didn't CGI her face like Anakin in the last episode. Then we got a Captain Rex cameo, and he said this. Come on, let's go! It is just incredibly jarring to hear Morrison as Rex. It just is. Then Anakin shows up.
I don't know this battle.
This was the Siege of Mandalore. We had parted ways by now.
Looks intense.
Yes, you should remember this. You're the one who set up the whole thing so that Ahsoka could lead the siege. I guess Dave Filoni forgot that again. Keep in mind they are surrounded by dead clones and comrades, and they're just making light of the subject, which is just crazy to me. Also, the smoke is back, and it still looks terrible. Also, I don't remember there being this much smoke during the Clone Wars arc, but I guess they need to cover up how bad the volume looks, so they just hotboxed the entire place. They start fighting again, and this time, Anakin's lightsaber is red because if you don't know, he becomes Darth Vader, and then his eyes turn red because he's a Sith Lord, otherwise known as Darth Vader. Then his body flashes into Darth Vader because again, if you don't know already, he becomes Darth Vader. Are the keys jangling loud enough yet? Anyway, while they're fighting, Anakin's eyes look so bad. And then Ahsoka wins because she needs to, obviously. There's obviously no problem with the stakes of the overall story of the OT, knowing that Ahsoka can just beat Vader. And then her eyes turn red. Oh, this is just so terrible. This is a fan fiction. This is just fan fiction. I can't stand this. Then she says that she chooses to live and throws Anakin's lightsaber off the edge, and that's no big deal. He can just buy another one. Then Anakin backs off and it looks like he starts checking Ahsoka out. that. Yikes, bro. Bro, Anakin, stop. Dave, is this your choice? Did you do this? Who did this? Who decided this? This is disgusting. Anyway, then Anakin just disappears and Ahsoka is now in the ocean again. She gets picked up by a pilot and then she lays down on the bridge. Alright, what just happened? Like, what's going on with the world between worlds? Because it's not explained at all what's actually happened, and I feel like the assumptions that I'm making are pretty bad. And I'm gonna be honest, I think I'm right. So my interpretation of what just happened is Ahsoka actually died. So if you don't know, there's this green pigeon that follows Ahsoka around wherever she goes when she's in danger. The bird is the sister from the Mortis arc. I don't remember that much from the Mortis arc, and I honestly don't really care, so I'm not even gonna explain it. All I gotta know is she is an embodiment of the light side of the Force. We don't see this bird in this episode, but what has happened in the past is the bird has protected her. For example, the bird is the one who suggested to Ezra to pull Ahsoka out of the portal. So I think a similar thing happened here. Ahsoka died or either was close to death and then was teleported into the world between worlds because the pigeon protects her. Then she meets with the Force ghost of Anakin, who's acting completely out of character because at this point, he's Anakin. He's been redeemed. He shouldn't be Darth Vader. He is a redeemed man, but whatever, Dave Filoni needs those keys jangling, baby. But then after they fight and she quote-unquote learns her lesson, she is teleported back into the real world. Which, if that's true, this is implying that Ahsoka is immune to dying, which completely gets rid of all stakes in the show, but whatever. Dave can't kill his precious golden egg. Cut back to Chopper and Jason literally doing nothing, and Hera flies by. We see Ahsoka resting inside, and dear God, what is that? Bro, I don't even want to talk about this. I'm moving on. If I need to explain why this is terrible, you're probably eating crayons in the middle of class right now, so turn the iPad off, please. Pay attention to your teacher. She's teaching you the alphabet. Then Ahsoka goes outside and she sees Jason. Just as a reminder, these two characters have never talked to each other on screen, and they act like they're aunt and nephew. Then Hera asks where Sabine is, and Ahsoka picks up a piece of the broken map, and you know what? I'm just gonna play a clip from a previous video I made because that applies to here as well. Yes, she has the power of psychometry now, I guess. Let me read a little fun fact about psychometry from the wiki for you. Psychometry was a Force power in which a Force user could learn information about the past of an object or those who've interacted with it. To experience the Force echo of the object and those who have interacted with it, all the Force user needed to do was touch the object or, in case of a location, enter it. That's a really cool ability. Now I wonder how long it took for Ahsoka to learn this ability. Oh wait, let me continue reading. Psychometry was not a power that could be achieved through careful cultivation, as only those who were born with the power could do so. So how on Earth, or any plane of existence, can Ahsoka use this ability, Dave? Dave, you've written a character with psychometry before. Did you just forget how that works too? All right, we got that covered? Cool. Anyway, moving on. Anyway, Hera's on call with Mon Mothma, and Mon Mothma says this.
You can't be serious.
Do you have Morgan Elspeth in custody?
No.
Do you have evidence of Imperial Remnant activity or of Grand Admiral Thrawn's return?
Hera responds by saying this.
No.
Yes, you do, Hera! Ahsoka is literally outside right now. She can vouch for you. Stop saying you have no evidence. Then Mon Mothma says this.
I'm not sure I agree to that.
Hera, the Senate Oversight Committee is going to determine if your command should be permanently suspended.
Based Mon Mothma, get her out of here. I know this is supposed to be a sad moment for Hera, but I don't care. This is the best thing to happen to her in this show. She 100% deserves this. Get out of here. Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
I don't know how you score this, but we're losing right now.
Man, the MCU quips really did infect the franchise, didn't they? Then Ahsoka comes up and says that she knows how to get to Sabine. Oh boy, I can't believe this is gonna happen. Hold on to your horses, boys. Cut to Ahsoka, Huyang, Hera, Chopper, and Jason flying, and they meet the space whales. Then we see the big whale. Ahsoka walks outside of her ship and talks to the big whale. I'm not joking. This is a real show. I wish I was making this up, but I'm not. Then the New Republic fleet shows up. Hey, remember when the committee denied Hera's mission to come here because, quote, they were tight on resources? Well, apparently that all was just a lie, because they could send 3 starships here without a problem. Then the Mando guy starts talking to the captain on the bridge and starts stalling for Ahsoka, because apparently if the ships get too close, they'll bother the whales, apparently. I don't remember that being a thing, but okay. Cut back to Ahsoka, and the mouth of the whale starts opening, and Ahsoka and Huyang fly directly into the mouth of the whale. I'm not joking. They straight up stole from Finding Nemo and just went into the mouth. And then Ahsoka says this.
You're certain they know where Sabine was taken?
I have no idea.
What? You have no idea? That's crazy. You're just completely fine with entering the mouth of this being that can go into hyperspace intergalactically, and you're completely fine with not knowing where this whale's gonna end up? You could get stranded in space. But it's fine, I guess? Why is this okay? Then cut back to the whales, and they've made their way towards the fleet, and they start surrounding it. And for a second, I thought that the whales were gonna steal the fleet and just take them into hyperspace. But they don't, and they leave. And then that's the end of the episode. God, what a terrible piece of storytelling. Imagine having access to legacy characters and not doing anything with them. I want to talk about the Anakin situation specifically, because it's one of my favorite tropes in all of fiction. The trope of the mentor figure meeting our main protagonist in a dream sequence or some other reality to give them words of inspiration is always one that warms my heart, when it's done good. Sadly, this trope is a trap for meaningless fan service, as evidenced by this episode of Ahsoka. Here's an example of one of my favorite uses of this trope in Arcane. At this point in the story, Vi has lost everything. As a young teen growing up to be a thief stealing from the top world, she gets her friends killed out of irresponsibility. She brought them to this warehouse, and they died here. Then, in a moment of rage, she loses her sister, and because of that, her sister becomes an adoptive daughter to Silco, which turns her into a monster. She also loses her father figure, Vander, in this explosion, and she blames herself for all of this. She's lost everything. The only thing she has left is her new friend, Caitlin. And even then, they're a topsider that doesn't understand her situation. Then, while fighting Savika in a bar, she's beaten to the ground. Then the voice of Vander comes through, inspiring her to get back up.
Well, your guard needs work. I wish I could say it gets easier, kiddo. But I'd be lying. What I can say is, she still needs you. They all do. So what do you say? That's my girl.
God, it's so good. I would have been completely okay if Dave Filoni just ripped this scene entirely and just put it into Ahsoka. I'd rather him be a complete honest plagiarist than a terrible and dishonest storyteller. But whatever, I guess I'm asking too much. Star Wars is saved.